So, konbanwa minasan. My name is Natalie Sola Osorio. I am the head of marketing of Lingualogic. Nice to meet you. We're gonna talk a little bit about Japan, about Japanese, and we're gonna answer some of your questions. And we also have a big announcement in the end. So stay tuned.
Good.
Now, yeah,
あ
go ahead.
はい。こんばんは、皆さん。私の名前は陳ジでございます。私は、リンゴロジックの社長でございます。その上、日本語の言語学者でございます。専門は、動詞の活用でございます。日本日本の文化と、旅行についての質問があれば、僕にメッセージを送ってください。So, hello everyone, good evening. My name is Chin. I'm the head of Lingualogic, but I'm also a Japanese linguist. And my specialty really is working with Japanese verb conjugations. And on top of that, I teach Japanese here in Puerto Rico, and now online. So please feel free to ask us any questions about Japan, its culture, and travel, and everything of that sort. Please send us a message here throughout the stream. So we'll be here for that. As in addition to the questions that you've asked us previously, right, yesterday. So yeah.
Okay, then let's start. Question number one will be, what is the difference between Nase and Nande?
Yeah, so we're going to start off with a grammar question. It's a good question. Both Nase and Nande mean something like why, right? So it's about asking about people's motivations. And the way that they're different has to do with formality. So Nase is considered a formal word, and Nande is considered a relatively informal word. So if you're talking to your boss or something like that, you would use Nase. If you're talking to a friend or something very casual, you'd use Nande. If you are trying to reach a middle ground, then you would have to know a third term, and that's doshite. So doshite sounds very, very neutral. It's more spoken than written. Naz is kind of reserved for written outside of formal situations. So I would say that generally, as a default, you should go with naze. I'm sorry, doshite, and then just know that in casual situations you would use nande, and then in more formal situations you can go up to naze. And this is just a matter of stratification, so that is like different ranks. And this is very common in Japanese generally. So you'll see that lots of very similar terms are ranked. So this is for formal situation, this is for informal, this is for writing, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Take a very common example. We could talk about taberu. So if you look at a dictionary, to eat is taberu. And then you're going to find out that in a sort of like vulgar level, right, very, very informal, you're going to see the word ku, which means the same thing. But then if you're talking about your boss eating, then you use meshiagaru. But then if you're talking about yourself eating, but you're talking about yourself eating to someone of a higher rank, like your boss, there you have to use a different verb entirely, which has nothing to do with eating. It's itadaku, which means to receive. So you have 4 different verbs to talk about eating, and at least 3 of them you're going to have to know how to use very, very consistently. So this is just a part of learning the language, that some of it's very similar, but it has a certain rank. So it's not the end of the world for sure.
Yes. Okay. Question number 2. How long does it take to learn Japanese?
Yeah. So you wanna give me 2 cents on that one?
Yeah, so I feel like it all depends on the person, their studying style, their motivation. But in general, like learning a language takes time because not only you're just learning the language, but you're also learning the culture, especially with Japanese. That is a lot is very related. So it takes time to communicate as a native if you want to become that level, you want to achieve that level. But it all depends on the person, what is their motivation and how they're studying and all that. But maybe you can give us like a clue, like for example, how long would it take? Would it take like a year, 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah. So
Mm.
it's all going to depend very much on where you're studying and how you're doing it. If your goal is to go to, if your intention is to go to Japan and go to a language school there, then you're looking at 2 or 3 years, maybe even four, depending on the institution. And what they're going to be doing is getting you through the JLPT levels. So they might not do five, but they'll do four, three, two, one, and just make sure that you take the exam as it becomes available throughout your study. So if you end up doing four, three, two, one, then it might be 2 years of your a fairly accelerated pace. Um, the JLPT is really the one uh, internationally recognized language proficiency test. It's by no means a perfect test, but
Mm-hmm.
since it's recognized, it's kind of the one that you have to play with. Um, just because you have the JLPT N1, which is the hardest level, mastered, it doesn't mean that you are super fluent in Japanese. It doesn't mean that you can do anything in Japanese. It means that you can work in formal situations with Japanese,
Yeah.
that you can understand concepts like abstract concepts and kind of follow argumentation. So it's really a very great formal basis for everything else. So if you want to work with literature, if you want to work with communications and things like that, you'll find that the language is a little bit different. Just because you really can't teach one person everything for an exam, you can't test somebody on everything. So Japan normally the culture will normally default to a very formal way because if you're going to kind of venture into communication, you'd rather sin by being too polite than by being too casual. So you'll
Yeah,
find that.
definitely.
So yeah, so 3, 2, maybe even 4 years with a Japanese school in Japan. If you're studying by yourself, which I guess is another extreme, then it can go again. It can be anywhere from 2 to 3 years, and that's assuming that you're very well motivated. If you have no motivation, then obviously it's not going to
Yeah.
happen.
And you
Uh,
have the time as well. Yeah.
yeah, so you need to be able to pace yourself and little by little learn how you learn, right? So you have to understand what are the kind of things that help you understand concepts, what are the kind of things that don't, right? What kind of things make you anxious, and that's part of the process. So not only are you like learning hiragana and katakana and kanji and all of this, you're also learning right how to expedite the process, right? So taking the methods that work for you, discarding the ones that don't. And once you get into a good groove, once you understand yourself, you'll find that you can learn quite a bit very quickly. On the other hand, just because you're learning it quickly, it'll mean that you could forget it quickly. So
Yeah.
you always need to be practicing, have a timetable about when you're going to go to Japan or, you're going to work in a Japanese company or something, like that, so that you can keep using it. So it'll be part of your long-term memory. That
Yeah,
takes
for
time,
sure. For
uh,
sure.
the practice. So it's really I'd say it's like 2 years just to get a handle on what's going on, and then it's another couple of years just practicing and solidifying and all of this. I would never discourage anyone from not venturing to go to Japan, from trying to find a job just because their Japanese isn't perfect. You know, Lots of companies are very okay with you not having it perfect. They'll find somewhere where you fit in. So I wouldn't say that this is the do all be all, right? The like a certification or having it perfect, right? That'll come with time. You have to make the effort for that. You have to, work towards that, but it doesn't impede you from starting.
Yeah,
You know, I'd
for
say that
sure.
I'd say that's fair.
Yeah. But if it's your goal to go there, maybe study abroad, maybe work part time, maybe do an internship, which you have the opportunity to do so, or work there, definitely will look good in your resume that you have taken at least one class or
Oh
you
yeah,
have some level, because then you are showing them that you are working towards that goal of learning the language and you want to communicate with them, right?
right.
Plus, you have to think that when you are trying to achieve that goal of going to Japan and work there. You are competing with all the Japanese people that already have a visa there. So they're natives, right? They live there. And they need to sponsor your visa. So how are you gonna be better than all these other candidates, right? What skills do you have? How good is your Japanese for them to be like, oh, I really need this person, and I'm not gonna choose another person from my own country, right? So it's very good for you to start thinking about that. And if this is your goal, to start working towards that because they will really appreciate it and it will look really good in your resume as well.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
Yep. Okay, so another question that we have is what is the difference between hiragana and katakana?
Yeah, so this is like a history question, really. In terms of functionality, in a very basic way, they're the same thing. So they're both syllabaries. So that's the normal name given to it, which means that they describe syllables. It's a little bit more complicated than that. They're describing moras, which is a different sound unit, but it's the same general idea applies, right? So it's a group of sounds. So it's not just like the S sound and the A sound and the T sound. It's actually sa, da, right? And even a. So that pure vowel, you'll find it in the sets. And hiragana and katakana have a one-to-one equivalency. So, there's an a for hiragana and there's an a for katakana. And the way that you would make palatalization, which is the ya sound, so I can say nya, right? So that's going to be ni, a small ya.
Mhm.
In katakana, it's going to be the same thing. So it's just the same thing, ni and small ya. So they're really the same in a way. On the other hand, they come from different places. They're used for different things. So the story of how we end up with a Japanese writing system to start with starts with a book called the Manyoshu, which is the collection of 10,000 leaves. And these are poems written in I guess it would go from the 7th to the 8th century, basically. It was compiled in the mid 8th century. And it's all written in kanji, right? So kanji are Chinese logograms. And these characters originally have an idea associated with them. But the Japanese were using them for phonetic reasons. So that becomes the basis of a Japanese writing system. The kanji that these poems use to express just pure sounds. And so those become Manyogana. That's the name that's given to them. So this is very similar to the way that modern Mandarin would express phonetic things. They actually use just kanji, it's just understood that you're not reading them for the meanings, you're just reading them for the sounds.
Yeah.
So the people of the court used a cursive version of the kanji, and little by little they started simplifying them. So they took the Manyogana and they simplified it into something new, and they called it hiragana. Katakana is the same idea. Some people, Buddhist monks specifically, took things from the Manyoshu, the Manyogana, and they just simplified it. So because they're not working with the cursive, they're working with more like straight lines, very quick writing. That became katakana. So hiragana is the curvy one, katakana is kind of the straight lines one. In modern Japanese, you're going to see katakana being used to make things look masculine, to make them look rough or kind of like dirty, even. And this is just part of how people have created sensibilities. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, the show Naruto, right? Naruto is a Japanese word, and they write it in katakana just because he's a boy. So it kind of gives it a gruff feeling. On the other hand, hiragana is more effeminate, so you'll see like beauty products written with katakana, even though the I'm sorry, with hiragana, even though the word is foreign. So shampoo, for example, you'll see that in hiragana every now and again. So it really just depends on the context of what the Japanese are trying to convey. But yes, generally, katakana will be used for foreign terms. Hiragana will be used for native Japanese terms, but that's not always consistent.
Yeah.
Um,
Onomatopoeia as well.
yeah, onomatopoeia is kind of a katakana thing. So that's also it's native, but they're still actually very markedly Japanese. They use a lot of onomatopoeia. So it just kind of depends. What else can I say? I think that's basically it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very similar in function, but you'll see them in different contexts. So Masculine stuff, katakana. Feminine stuff, hiragana. Foreign terms, katakana. And then there's some stuff in the middle, that you just see, like onomatopoeia, which is written in katakana. Everything else would be hiragana.
Yeah,
And kanji, obviously.
and candida. Okay, then we have another question that is, when is the best season to fly to Japan?
Yeah,
So, mhm.
go ahead.
So from my experience, since I was able to live in Japan for a year, all seasons are pretty magical because they're very distinctive. But since you have in spring, of course, the sakura, the cherry blossoms, right? And then you also have hanabi, which is that you sit down in the ground with your friends or your family, and you have like kind of like a picnic, and you drink and have food, and you just watch the scenery, right? And it's very nice. And that's a very nice season to go, of course. Oh, but it is a little bit more expensive. Then you have summer, and then in summer you have hanabi, and then with hanabi you have the summer festivals as well, which is pretty nice. And you sit down as well in the ground, and you have kind of like a picnic, and you eat food with your friends, and you watch the show with all the hanabi. Hanabi actually means flowers in the sky. So yeah, it's pretty nice. It's like having the sakura but in the sky, hanabi. And then for autumn, you have koyo, which is the leaves changing, and it's also very nice scenery, and there's a lot of different things that you can do as well. Many people also sit down in the ground and have kind of like a picnic and also watch the foliage and all that, and it's a very nice season too. And last but not least, you have, of course, winter. And in winter, you can go to the north, to Hokkaido, or to other northern parts of Japan. And you can see the snow, and there's snow festivals that many people in Hokkaido do, like sculptures, and there's competitions, and it's very nice as well. And also, you can go onsen, and I think it's a very nice experience because it's very cold outside. But you go to the onsen, which is the hot springs, and you bath in this hot water, and you feel so warm and nice, and then you go out and it's cold, and your face and your skin feels great after us. So yeah, I think it's a great experience to go. For me personally, I really like summer because I just really like the experience of having the hanabi and watching all the hanabi with my friends. So yeah, so it all depends on what you would like to see, but I definitely recommend for you to have different trips and try to watch all of these seasons because they're very nice and very distinctive. Yeah. How about you? For you, which season is the best one?
Yeah, my favorite season is the one that you can go to when you can afford it. So, I'm just that kind of person. I want to make sure that if I'm going to travel, I can be there for as long as possible. Because there's so much to do in Japan. There's so
Mm-hmm.
much variety of things. There's really no like bad time to go to Japan. Really, like if you really hate the cold, then don't go in winter. But and if you really don't like the heat for some reason, then don't go in summer. But spring and fall are both perfectly acceptable. I find that probably the best time in terms of just like the weather and the vibe would be kind of after Sakura season. So Sakura season is very expensive. So everyone wants to go to the park, everybody wants to do all of this. And if you don't live in Japan, the amount of money that you're going to be spending on hotels and all of this will be dramatically higher than any other season. So I would definitely say uh, that's the time to sakura season specifically is probably like avoidable. So if you know that you want to visit, let's say, the Kanto region, then kind of wait a little bit until the sakura are kind of further north, and then go and have a great time, and always be on the lookout for the festivals because there's always something going on.
Yeah, there's always
People like to party. So that's you'll always be able to catch something. If you're into like those very like those staples of Japanese culture, then definitely go in the summer, right? So that you can see fireworks, some of the bigger festivals, and things like that.
Suri.
Only thing that I would say don't try to do as a visitor is go during Golden Week. So that's totally not worth it, just because all the Japanese businesses are basically closed, and so everyone's out and about, traveling, visiting their families. So you have to get reservations for like the bullet train, and you normally don't need that. You have to book things way in advance. You don't want to be, you kind of just want to be going with the flow and figuring things out. So even something very dumb like going to Tokyo Disneyland, they have a limit on how many people can fit in there.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the year, you can just go. It doesn't really matter. But during Golden Week, you know that you're not going to be able to get in.
Yeah. No.
So
No.
even something like that you would say, this is like the most American thing ever, you can't do it. So it's one of those. It's one of those very chaotic moments in the Japanese year. So that's like at the end of April, beginning of May. So don't do Golden Week. But other than that, it's perfectly. I'd say any time is really great. So I myself haven't been in Japan during the winter. So I would like to do that at some point, kind of explore Hokkaido and more of the Tohoku region, which
Yeah.
is very well known for its onsen and also the active volcanoes, which
Yeah.
cause the onsen in the first place. So those
Mm-hmm.
are the hot springs, right? So they're caused by volcanic activity. So I would be interested in doing that and kind of getting very far away from city life. So that's also great that you can go to a lot of these small towns that are more open to tourists, and you can have a really really great time. And depending on where you are, you can have either an experience that uses a lot of English, or an experience where not a lot of people speak English. And definitely as a learner, right, as someone who's interested in the language and all of this, the more you can immerse yourself in the language, I think the more meaningful the experience.
Mhm.
Where even if like you could say, look, I couldn't. The only thing I could say was hello, thank you, this please, I'm fine, and that kind of stuff. Thank you very much, and all this. Like people will notice. You
Mhm.
know, wow, and I think people have a good reaction to that, and you say, well, look, I didn't know a whole lot, but I got the message across, and we had a good time.
Yeah, you feel good
That
about
that
yourself.
cuts down,
Yeah.
yeah. And if you're a little bit more advanced, then they can be like, ooh, right. So yeah,
上手。
Nihongo Jozu, so you'll hear that a lot too. So just go whenever you can. The reality is you can go whenever you want. Or please go whenever you can, and just know that you'll have a good time. There'll be
A good
plenty to
time,
do. Just,
definitely.
yeah, just do a little bit of research for the festival, but it'll
Also, if there's people that have the necessity of using a wheelchair or something like that, there's the possibility for you to also go to Japan and experience Japan with a wheelchair. So don't let that get you down and go travel there as well. They have a lot of places where you can also rent your own wheelchair, and yeah, they will help you out in the train stations, in the bus. They will help you out. So there's no problem with that. You don't even have to have the language so set for them to help you in this kind of situation. They will definitely help you, and you will have a great experience as well. Definitely.
yeah.
Hmm. So another question is, can you really learn Japanese from anime?
Yeah, so that's really gonna depend on what you mean by learning Japanese with anime. So the question I think largely arises from people who have had the following experience. So they come from a house where maybe the main language is Spanish. Their parents don't know a lot of English, but they themselves know quite a bit of English. You could even say that they think in English. They have like these insert words even when they're conversing in Spanish that are just English. And the question becomes, how did they do it? Well, a simple observation will indicate that it was because the media that they grew up with was in English. So it's not that, right, Spanish was spoken at home, but your textbooks at school were in English. The TV shows you watched were in English. The
Yeah.
things that you saw on the internet were in English. The things you read on the internet were in English. And so because there's so much English surrounding you, your brain will start, taking it
Mhm.
in. And eventually it'll start spitting it out. So it doesn't necessarily happen automatically. But give a kid, let them be like 10, 12, and the kid will start speaking English and might not want to speak Spanish anymore. And it makes no sense to the parents. So I get this a lot as well.
Yeah.
Um, So that's kind of what people I think want to happen again, but with Japanese. So it's like, let me watch enough Japanese, and eventually I'll have to start spitting it out. And that doesn't really happen. It's really not that simple because you're already an adult, or you're at least past those formative years. Your brain doesn't do this anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to really take a moment to sit down and focus on what it is that you're listening to, what it is that you're reading, and break it down bit by bit. You do need some kind of logical process through it. So even if it's not like learning grammar, you need to like work with repetition. You need to work with reliable translations and all of this. So you can use anime for sure. The question is, what are you using it? How are you using it? So it's a good basis because it's obviously the Japanese language. It's a form of literature, or at least a form of media, of art. So it is meaningful to work with anime. Um, the question then becomes, okay, so you can learn some words, you can learn some grammar, you can repeat what they're saying. What does that lead you to? And it leads you to basically more anime consumption. So the same thing that you'll see in anime, you'll see in manga, assuming that you can read it. But it's not going to help you necessarily find a job or converse with like a nice old lady, because um, manga is fiction, or anime manga fiction. They want to change the way in which people converse. It's the same thing like if you watch Looney Tunes and you try to speak like Daffy Duck, they probably think you're really weird. Or Bugs Bunny, or any of these characters, right? So it's not that they're not speaking English; it's that they're speaking a funny version of English.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what happens in anime normally. So we do need to kind of take a step back and learn from others. What's the difference? So this can be done with books. There's lots of books on this. Definitely, language partners will help you a lot with this. I would recommend that if you go having learned anime and you want a language partner, I would say please find someone of the same sex. So if your goal is to be able to speak Japanese normally, quote unquote normally, then you're gonna want to use someone of the same sex because the language is gendered in a way. So women speak one way, men speak another way. And if you spend too much time around women, then you probably speak a little bit more effeminate if you have these little feminine inflections. And then if you spend too much time with men, you probably don't use the words that would be expected of you. And like everything, nowadays, you can make that conscious choice to just not speak as effeminate, or speak more effeminate, and be that what it may be. So the answer really is, you can use it. It won't take you the distance, but it can be a good starting point, right? Then when you need to interact with more people, you can switch to having a language partner. But those lessons you learn with anime in terms of like vocabulary and grammar and all this, they will be helpful later on. So it's not like you have to choose one version of Japanese or the other. They're complementary. Okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so another question is like, what is the difference between kudasai and onegaishimasu?
Yeah. So this is a good question because they're both expressions. So kudasai is a specific conjugation of kudasaru, the verb kudasaru, it's a verb. And kudasaru means to give, to honorably give. And so kudasai it's kind of infinitive. So it's being used like an imperative, so it kind of means like give me, right? It's about giving. Onegaishimasu is a humble expression. And it means I humbly request, right? I humbly beg. And what you're asking is I humbly beg that you do something. So it's a little bit more general than giving. So you'll see a lot of the time that kudasai and onegaishimasu are interchangeable when it comes to services. So please give me this, kore kudasai, kore onegaishimasu, omizu onegaishimasu, omizu kudasai. Most people think that those are generally, interchangeable. Where you would only use onegaishimasu in a situation where you're really asking somebody for, or you're asked for, you're welcoming a certain service. So if someone says, I'm gonna should I explain this to you? Then you can say onegaishimasu. So please, right? When the teachers come into the classroom, you say onegaishimasu because you're asking them to please impart their knowledge to you. You wouldn't say kudasai. Okay.
Mhm.
There's also expressions, right? So te kudasai is a common expression where you take a verb phrase and then use kudasai. And this is more of a direct request. So I'm asking you to please do it. So it's not like I offered and then you say, oh, please. It's like please do it for me. So that's te kudasai. So just to kind of recap, I can say something like, um, would you like me to explain it to you? Onegaishimasu, but not kudasai. But then I can say, please explain it to me. And that you can say, setsume shite kudasai. So setsume suru to explain. So setsume shite kudasai. Please explain it to me. That also makes sense. And finally, you'll hear onegaishimasu at the end of a self introduction. So you'll say your name, where you're from, your age, anything that's relevant, and then at the end of it, you'd say yoroshiku onegaishimasu. And this means like I very humbly ask you well to take care of me, to help me,
Mhm.
put up with me. So you're asking for like this cooperation from the group. So you can't say kudasai because that just means give it to me, and they're gonna be wondering what does he want me to do. So that'd be very very weird. So onegaishimasu for more general giving of services or help. Kudasai is to give an actual thing, right? So if you're going to use it very generally like that, or with the expression te kudasai, where I'm directly asking you to do something for me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, those are the questions that we have for now. But if there's somebody in the chat that wants to ask us any question, then we are more than welcome to do so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So
Mhm.
we've been talking about culture, we've been talking about travel very briefly, we've been talking um, about the history, right, of the language. And in a way, all these things are kind of integrated.
Mhm.
As you go through your journey, you can't escape them. So you really can't talk about learning Japanese without at one point needing to go to Japan. You
Yeah.
can't talk about learning how Japanese social structures and that stratification works if you don't know Japanese history.
Mhm.
So this is all really integrated, and you find that you kind of maybe not if you don't become an expert, but you do need to have a handle on all of these.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, definitely. I think, especially for like a generally Puerto Rican audience, people have questions about food. So is the food good? What can I eat? I'm allergic to this and that, and that's quite an interesting. It's an interesting experience because you'll find that a lot of things have fish, like some fish product in it. So fish oil, fish paste. Some
Bonito face.
bonito flakes are, yeah. So those things kind of make people a little bit scared of eating it, especially if they're not really fish eaters. But I would say if you're not allergic to fish, go for it. Like just go for it because it's really
Definitely.
good.
Definitely.
It's a different flavor experience. So
Melts in your
everything's
mouth.
fresh.
It's amazing.
Yeah, everything is so fresh that it's just a different thing. So I would definitely recommend uh, having the courage to go to these places and try things out.
Mhm.
You'll find that Japanese restaurants are very much, especially the busier ones, are really just eat and leave. So especially like the ramen ya, like
Yeah.
you go in, the ramen shop, right? You're gonna go in, you're gonna order your food, you're gonna eat it, and you're gonna leave. So it's not a place to hang
Mhm.
out. There's places to hang out, which are izakaya. Those are very well known for places where you can just talk and whatever. And those are a little bit like tapas bars, if you want to think of it in a certain way. It's more for drinking than for eating, but you can get a good meal there. Um, they're very well known for tabe hodai and nomi hodai. So
Hold
tabe
on.
hodai is all you can eat, like eat in a certain period of time, and nomi hodai is all you can drink in a certain period of time.
Yeah.
A good bonding experience for your coworkers or for your friends who are traveling with you in Japan, a nice bit of culture. Um, and also, you'll find that Japan doesn't really do substitutions. So, like, can I have this instead of that?
Mm,
They won't do that. But
yeah,
on the other
please don't do that. Please don't do
yeah,
that. I have a bad experience from that.
yeah,
Not
like,
for me necessary, but I used to work in Shibuya,
yeah,
and Shibuya is big on tourism, right? There's a lot of tourists. And I went to this Burger King there. So I suddenly felt like, okay, I'm gonna have a burger. Let's see. And I was making the line, and this couple, I don't want to say nationalities, but this couple went to the cashier and they were telling that I don't want onions, I don't want tomatoes,
and what do you say?
I don't want mayonnaise. And you will see the face of the cashier like traumatized or like what am I gonna do? What should I do? And she had to call the manager and the manager was like what is going on? And they were very like
Yeah,
yeah, they didn't know what to do because that doesn't happen really. If you don't like something, you just take it out after you order it, because that kind of disrespects in a way how they serve the food as well. And it's also not usual, so it doesn't really happen. And so the couple got mad at them, and they started screaming to them, so I had to intervene because they didn't know English as well, the people that were working in the place. And I had to explain to them, this usually doesn't happen in Japan. You just order whatever that you want and then you take it out, because this doesn't really happen. And they were really mad, so they just got their food and they left.
Yeah,
uh, but it's not good, especially because there's people living there, us foreigners that live there, and there's then the Japanese have like this bad impression about these other foreigners coming and saying all these bad things. And yeah, it doesn't help the ones that are working there and living there to have a good experience because of these other situations, right?
yeah,
So please be mindful of that,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, and I'll also say one thing. It's like fast food isn't a bad thing. So I'm a little bit of a minority in this, but I say, look, you should definitely go to a fast food if you really do need fast food. Just don't order what's like already on the menu in.
Yeah, definitely. Like
So
takoyaki,
yeah,
something. Yeah, it's
yeah.
good.
So KFC has different things like
Hmm.
Burger King, McDonald's. I like Wendy's because it actually has like a totally different store. It's
Yes,
two
very
things
different.
at
It
once.
tastes different too.
Yeah. So Wendy's is very good, and they also have Japanese fast food. So definitely try those. So
Mm-hmm.
Moss Burger is
Moss
very good.
burgers,
They have like
Loteria.
the burger with like the rice buns. That's really
Mm,
good. There's also, well, this isn't Japanese, but it is very well. Yoshinoya, which is very well known for the
no.
moles.
Yes.
That's really like fast food. Like I just need rice and meat. Like we're just gonna go with that. Matsuya is very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of ramen franchises which are kind of the same deal.
Yeah,
But I was thinking about Loteria, which is really good, but I think
Loteria.
that's Korean. I think that's Korean, right?
Loteria is Korean. Yes.
Yeah, but I don't care. It's really good. So I would recommend that. They're big burgers. They're like considerably sized, all things considered. And that's really great. So they're the same company that makes lotte, like the whoopie pies and stuff like that. They're
And
those.
Lotte World, if you go to Korea, Lotte
Yeah,
World.
yeah. So that's really great. So I wouldn't diss fast food because I would say that you know maybe
Yeah,
for
definitely. If you're there a long time, you will definitely miss something at one point. I was
yeah,
there for a whole year, so at one point I was like, I need like an American burger, because
yeah,
the Japanese burgers are good. They're really good, but they kind of tend to be a little bit smaller or very thin.
yeah,
If they're big, they're very thin. So
yeah,
I wanted something a little bit more on the bigger side. So, but do be mindful that it's very expensive.
yeah,
It's very expensive. Just for one burger, it's almost $8.
yeah. So
Yeah.
the foreign stuff is costly, but you can get lots of good food for cheap. So ramen can be pretty cheap. You can get
Mm-hmm.
really great sushi for almost nothing. It feels
Mm-hmm.
like 400 yen. You could get a good piece of tuna. You know, like
Yes.
wow. So definitely, I would recommend kaiten sushi, which is the sushi go round. Those are very good. They don't break the
Yes.
bank. You can like stack up your plates
Mm-hmm.
and
And
it's like
only for $10 or
yeah,
less.
yeah. It's like wow. So I would definitely
Mm-hmm.
recommend kaiten sushi. If you don't like sushi, I'll say this: give Japanese sushi a chance. It's
Yes. Please.
totally different. It's like 10 times better than anything you'll get in the U.S. or here.
Mhm.
Here, sushi is very weird. So don't take this as like the end all be all of sushi. Like go to Japan, try things out, and
Yeah.
great.
And
Um,
if in the end you don't like it, then that's fine. Try yakiniku instead or yakitori. Please.
oh
It's
yeah,
really good.
that's an experience. So yakiniku is like very much like a nighttime food.
Or shabu shabu. Mhm.
Shabu shabu is like yeah, like the together food. But you'll definitely see people eating, or you'll see the yakiniku places with like they're very very narrow. It's a
Mhm.
bar, and there's like smoke coming out of the door like it's nobody's business. You're like, how are these people not dead? Uh, yeah. It also smells delicious. Like it
Oh,
smells
yes.
divine.
So good.
Yeah, and then you sit down, and then you kind of realize that yakiniku is really like the weird parts of the chicken. So like you're not gonna get a breast, right? It's gonna be like the heart, the gizzards and all that. So you get like a stick of like all the
Mhm.
weird stuff, but it tastes
But
great.
it's
So
really good. And
yeah,
then you can get like a yaki onigiri,
ah
which
yeah,
oh my god, amazing as well. Yeah,
yeah,
it's just the onigiri grilled, and it
yeah,
tastes really good as well. Yeah.
yeah. So there's a lot of great food experiences. So people who
Hmm.
are east definitely.
And if you get out of Tokyo and you go to other cities and other prefectures, then you can get their food as well.
Yeah,
Any changes? For me personally, I love the ramen from Sapporo. Sapporo
yeah,
ramen is amazing. It's just amazing. Like you have the whole ramen, like ramen usually is ramen, right? The soup with the broth and the noodles, but then you have like grilled meat and just like ramen, like the pork that you all usually have in ramen, but then you have a grill as well, and then you have corn, and you also have nori, seaweed. Oh, and it's like this big, but it's amazing. Definitely an experience that you should have. Yeah.
yeah. You'll find that a lot of places like have a specialty ramen, so you can like go on a ramen tour like all through Japan. Fukuoka also has a specialty ramen,
Oh,
and
yes.
Hokkaido is very well known for soba, which is
Mm,
a totally different process of making it. It's a totally different thing. And it's quite neat, and I think soba is really really good. You also find that they serve noodles cold. There's a lot of places that during the winter they'll serve them hot, but then you can get them cold during the summer, and it doesn't really matter. Like they'll make them, however you want, no matter the season. But I know people have been shocked that, oh look, they're cold, and like whatever. So and skimming, that's very common as well. Getting skimming, so it's like you get the broth next to it, so then you just dunk it in and you eat it. So that's very common as well. So definitely a culinary journey. Um,
mm-hmm.
Also, if you're interested in theme parks, that's also a journey. I know that some people like that. Puerto Ricans are actually like it quite a lot. So there's a Hello Kitty park, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a theme park that's like next to Mount Fuji. It's like
Fuji Q.
Disneyland or
Fuji Q.
if eso. So
Yeah. If you
that's
Yeah, if you like to go like in a string rides and you're like, no, I don't really like Disney or doing or on Universal Studios or nothing like that, then Fuji Q is for you. Plus, you have a great view of Fuji.
right. Yeah, they're extreme rides. They're like kind of terrifying. Um, yeah. There's now a Boruto or a Naruto theme park as well. They're
Oh
kind of little
yeah,
adventure parks
yeah,
for kids.
yeah.
Those are very
They're
common.
they're making a theme park for Studio Ghibli as well.
Oh yeah, and that's on its way. Yeah, so it's gonna be. They said that it's not gonna be like rides. It's gonna be like an experience. That same thing at the Studio
Mhm.
Museum. It's not gonna be like much bigger. So you
Mm,
can imagine that it'll be really pretty, very serene. We'll see if they could put like one little ride eventually. They'll cave in. But that's definitely gonna be a hot thing very soon. Also
mhm.
talking about things coming soon. Super Nintendo World, right? The Mario World in Universal Studios, which they announced a couple days ago. So there's a Universal Studios in Japan. It's in Osaka. It's near the water, and it's very small, but they do have land, and so they're making a Mario park, and they have this ride, which is going to be like Mario Kart, which is going to be VR. So it's going to be very very neat. For sure, and that's supposed to open in February or something like that. So it seems like it's well, it's basically done. So that's going to be a big ticket item, definitely as people come in for the Tokyo Olympics. Um,
Mhm.
Universal Studios, the Hello Kitty, right? So you have like these little parks, Fuji Q, definitely.
Yeah.
Then there's Disney, right? Which is it's a big, operation. It's a whole little resort, really. It's in Tokyo. It's a little bit outside of like the normal areas of Tokyo, so it's
Getting into Shiba. Yeah, I guess.
yeah, like it's basically yeah, it's like very near the airports, that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
it's it's two parks actually. So it's not just Disneyland. It's another park
Disney
called
Sea.
Sea. So a lot of people can like make it a 2 day thing. I recommend that a lot of you're into Disney. Like it really is worth it. If you're not into Disney, this isn't going to convince you,
Yeah.
but it really is something worth experiencing. So there's something for everyone. It doesn't need to be just for like the very pure culture thing. And in fact, you're gonna find that if you just do the pure culture stuff, you're probably gonna go hungry and you're gonna be confused. So, like for example, if you want to go see like a geisha like perform, like, and I'm not talking like a group of tourists like to see a geisha perform. Like, if you want to shell out, $2,000 just to get a geisha to perform for you and your family, you're not gonna understand what she's singing. You're not gonna understand what the game is. You're probably gonna think it's dumb, and you're gonna be $2,000 poor for it.
ちょっとね。
Same thing with the tea ceremony. The
Mhm.
tea ceremony is a very stratified thing. You're supposed to sit the proper way. You get little sweets along with the tea. The person prepares the tea in a specific process, and it's definitely not for everyone.
I have to say that if you do want to experience the tea ceremony or something related to that, you can go maybe to the schools there, make like school festivals,
Yeah,
and you can go. Everyone can go, and there's always a tea ceremony club,
yeah,
and they will perform for free. And
right,
it's very nice, and they will give you the tea make very well with the sweets and everything. It tastes really good. If you just want the tea with the sweets, you can go to any temple and they have like a little spot for you to have the sweets and the tea, the matcha, so you don't have to really go through a process of going to the ceremony. But if you
right.
do want to go, you can go to a school if they have
Yeah,
like a school festival. Yeah,
yeah.
and it's
And there's yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, it's free.
It was good. Yeah. There's also travel agencies that will make packages for people who want to do a lot of the traditional stuff so that they can get to see it. They'll normally give you a little bit of context beforehand. So, a very common thing that people do is kaiseki. So, it's like the very traditional Japanese food. And it's very like dainty little things. It's like 10 different entrees at once.
Yep, yep.
It's not necessarily what you're expecting in terms of like flavor. So a lot of people complain like, "Oh, this tastes awful," but they tell people beforehand, "Look, this isn't what you're gonna expect, but at least you got to eat it.
It's more
Give it a
traditional.
shot. If there are 10 entrees, you're probably like six. Like you can
Mhm.
eat six, and that's part of it. You'll find like I didn't like matcha that much, and now I like matcha a lot because I had a lot of matcha. So definitely, like your taste buds, will adapt to the experiences, and to different kinds of music, right, and all that. So if you watch kabuki, if you watch like a real kabuki show, it'll probably be kind of weird at the beginning, but you might like it at the end. Like once you get the idea. Same thing with No. I think No's a little bit more accessible in its way.
Mhm.
Shaku, which is puppets. Um, the only thing that's I think hard just because you need to know the language is probably manzai. So this is a lot of stuff that you could find in Osaka, by the way. So it's a Kansai region. So manzai is like stand-up comedy, but it's two people going at it like one after another, and it's really really funny. But you kind of have to know the language. And those shows are actually very cheap. Like you can go to a manzai show like in the middle of the day for maybe like $10.
Yeah.
And the people are funny. The problem is that they just need to do something real quick in the middle of the day. So yeah, that's definitely a lot. So there's a lot to do in Japan.
Yeah. You can go karaoke as well.
Yeah,
If
that's
you're into clubbing, that's also possible. Well, right now I'm not sure how's
yeah,
that a possibility right now because of the circumstances, but it's also an option when everything clears up, right?
yeah,
And yeah, you can go to convenience stores and buy anything that you need from there, and also
mhm,
hang out with your friends.
yeah. It's great, very, very, literally very convenient. You can pay your bills at a
Yeah,
convenience store.
I will pay my healthcare plan. I will pay it there. The post office, I could do it there. The what else? My
Tickets.
my train car, everything. My shampoo, my toilet paper, everything. It was from 7-Eleven.
So definitely, combini are something to marvel at. What would I not recommend? In terms of like things that I would tell you don't do. Like don't worry about that. It's very few things that I say. Like if you're gonna like eat Big Macs at McDonald's, don't go to McDonald's. But definitely, I would say think twice about doing the Tokyo Sky Tree. The Sky Tree is nice. I'm not going to say it's not nice, but it is expensive. And if your idea is to get like a panoramic view, there's other places that you can do that for free. So you can do it I think it's the city hall or one of the big government buildings.
In Shinjuku,
Yeah,
you
you
can
can
go
do that. It's free, so you're gonna get the same thing. So that one, think about it twice. There's a very famous robot restaurant, I think it's called. Don't go to the robot restaurant.
there.
There's a story behind this. It seems to have been a money laundering scheme by the Yakuza. So they actually like invested a lot of money and it was like actual robots. Now it's run by foreigners. It's for foreigners. It's not very good. So
Yeah.
don't spend your money on that. Um, if you have a gambling issue, please don't play pachinko because pachinko is very flashy and nice. So don't play pachinko. Don't save yourself from that. Um, Definitely, if there's like any like overrated stuff that's just like a tourist trap, I think those are easy to kind of notice. So stay away from that. Uh,
Yeah, you will see if you go to Shibuya, Shinjuku at night, there will be a lot of promoters
yeah,
giving you flyers and telling you, oh, there's this special in this izakaya or this club, or don't take those. They're usually more expensive than what they say because the entrance is free, of course, but then you start ordering food or drinks and it gets very expensive. So it's a trick. Don't do it. Please don't. Yeah, especially if you don't know the language that well, I will not recommend it. Just go to places that you see that they have a nice crowd of people and that everything is fine, that you can look in the reviews in the internet or something. But don't go to the places that the promoters are giving you flyers in the streets. No,
yeah. And host clubs and hostess clubs. I look even if you want to like do it for the heck of it, saying that I went to a host club or a hostess
don't
club.
do it alone.
Don't do it alone. Especially if you're a girl, don't do it
Mhm.
alone. It's gonna be expensive. Probably if you want drinks, because that's how they make their money off drinks. If you don't know Japanese, they're not gonna talk to you.
They're not gonna let you don't know Japanese. You need to know
Yeah.
Japanese.
So
Yeah.
it's like you know.
Just
Uh,
remember that they're trying to get you to go there almost every week.
yeah.
So
It's kind
and
of
stay
an
with them.
emotional addiction. It's really something like that.
Mhm.
Um, Akihabara, don't go. It's one of those things. Akihabara, so it's an interesting place. I'm not crazy about the idea of maid cafes because the more you look into it, the more you realize that there's a lot of people who seem to be not, if not exploited, they are being taken advantage of.
Mm.
Just
They're
working,
very expensive as well.
and they're expensive. You can have a wonderful experience at a kisaten, like a Japanese style
Mhm.
cafe. No
There's
one's
many
gonna bother
of
you.
them.
No one's
There's
gonna
many
kick
of
you out. Great coffee. So it's not really
amazing
necessary.
coffee.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not necessary. Video games, you can buy video games anywhere in Japan at a discount. It's not just in Akihabara. If you need something very, very particularly special, maybe Akihabara might be the only place that'll have it. But otherwise, excuse me,
Bless.
you can do it. You can do it anywhere. So don't limit yourself just to that. Um,
Buy souvenirs in Daiso.
right, right. Get it for a buck. Or
Just
something.
$1.
So that's definitely like a list of things that I would say don't do. So yeah, we've talked a lot about culture and traveling in Japan and these experiences. Hopefully, they'll encourage you to take a leap of faith, and do it yourself. So in light of that, because we've mentioned that there's a lot that has to do with the language, you want to learn the language, right? If you want to kind of like get to that next level, either as a tourist or as a professional, we would definitely recommend that you consider our Japanese courses, which are Japanese for adults and Japanese for teens, which start in January of the upcoming year. They're both generally very similar courses. Obviously, one for teenagers and the other one's for adults. They're meant to give you they're meant to move at a moderate pace and present to you the fundamentals of Japanese grammar, kanji, and techniques to work with media. So specifically, we'll be working with books. So how do we face the unknown? What are the processes that we can use to make the experience more efficient? In addition to that, as our holiday sale, we have Japanese manga available to our first 20 students. who sign up this month. So these include, but are not limited to, Studio Ghibli manga with colored. So they're very beautiful. They're Japanese. We have Spirited Away. We have Princess Mononoke. We have Porco Rosso. We have The Wind Rises, which are all excellent movies. I would definitely recommend them. Just in general.
Yeah.
So, huh?
My Hero Academia.
Yes. And then we also have, yeah, we have manga. So we have uh, Boruto, My Hero Academia, and One Piece, which is one of these classic series. So definitely, if you're interested in learning Japanese, I would say jump on it now, because not only do you get to take the course, you also get to get some materials for your for future benefit. Definitely. So there's a big deal of satisfaction having studied a language and then being able to actually work with the material and say, wow, I actually understand a lot of this, and I know what to do when I don't understand it. So definitely, we're encouraging you to be proactive, right, with your education. Sign up today or as soon as you possibly can, because the offer is limited. So again, the courses are online. They start in January. We have one group for teens. We have one group for adults. Teens is a little bit more moderate in terms of the pacing. We're talking more about techniques, maybe looking a little bit more at media. And then for adults, we are moving at a more standard pace, and definitely engaging the culture. Both courses last 50 classes, and then after the end of the 50 classes, you'll have 6 months to restudy everything, because all the classes are pre-recorded. So that's included in the total enrollment fee. So it's not that you have to pay for 6 more months. It's all one thing. So definitely, if you're interested in Japanese, learning the efficient way, learning in a way that can get you closer to your goals, then Japanese for teens and Japanese for adults. As always, if you have any questions about anything that we've discussed, feel free to leave us a message here or as a direct message. We'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can. We're fairly quick, and we'll definitely do this more often as the need arises. And this is fun, so definitely you'll see us in the near future.
Yeah, of course. And
Yes,
yeah, start your journey to Japan right now from your home.
exactly.
Yeah,
So making the most of this, right? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and start learning how to tango Japanese and learn a few words and then more grammar until you get to a level that you feel very comfortable with and you can actually go to Japan and express yourself in another language.
right.
Yeah.
So please, everybody, 気をつけてください. Please be careful, right? 質問があれば、メッセージを送ってください. So please send us those messages. And until then, またね。おやすみなさい、みんな。
またね。じゃあね、みんな。気をつけてね。